Arsenal's growing stature was brought home in 1933, knocked out of the Cup by 3rd Division Walsall. It remains one of the greatest ever giant-killing acts, especially as Arsenal finished champions for the 2nd time. Exactly 12 months later, Herbert Chapman was dead. Pneumonia had set in and claimed this visionary man, who many believe was the greatest football manager of all time. The mark of his greatness cannot just be measured in titles and triumphs. The standards he set have continued to live on at Highbury. The man who had the task of replacing Chapman was George Allison.
I'm here today with the Arsenal football team, and in a moment you'll see just what a fine lot of fellows they are. We're all looking forward most eagerly and in the keenest anticipation to the forthcoming season. As league champions, we have a very high standard of football to maintain, and I sincerely hope and trust and believe we will maintain it.
Maintain it they did. The championship was retained and new young faces like Dennis Compton were arriving. Allison's first signing, though, was Ted Drake.
It was a bit of a shock to me, and a shock to anybody. You know, I'm playing for Southampton in those days, in the second. When I was asked, would I go and have a word with Mr. Allison? I said, Mr. Allison, Arsenal. And I said, what's on? You see, they said, well, there's a chance of you being transferred there. So I said, well, don't delay the time, please. And, oh no, I couldn't get there quick enough, really. And it was George Allison, his very first signing, so maybe I might have been dear old Herbert's last, but I wasn't, but I was George's first. And he had a hard job, you know, George Allison, taking over, because, you see, Herbert Chapman had set such a great example and whatnot, but George Allison and his players and his team and his trainers and his squad lived up to it, yes. If you look at his record, he did very well.
A 3rd successive championship came to Highbury in 1935. The Cup was won in 36, and in 1938 the league title yet again. But Allison's work wasn't just on the field of play. In 1936, work began on an identical stand to face the one on the west side of the pitch. A year earlier, a roof had been built at the north bank end, but it was the new east stand costing £130,000, which remains to this day one of the most imposing structures in sport.
This was going to be the last word in, well, it was at the time, the last word in football stadia. I remember the dressing rooms were superb. There were tiled floors, and in winter, of course, you can get cold feet, so they'd heated the area under where your feet went. And when you came in on a match day, all your playing kit was laid out, spick and span and businesslike, and you were going into a professional environment straight away, made for football. And in addition, of course, we had a gymnasium upstairs, treatment rooms, the latest thing in methods of getting players fit after they'd had an injury, showers, baths, and luxury unlimited.
Oh, I think I've got to describe the Arsenal dressing rooms as very, very palatial. Beautiful. They spent a great deal of money on them. And then, of course, the trainer then was Tom Whittaker, who, in fact, was to become manager of Arsenal. And a wonderful man he was as well, very popular, loved by all the players.
One of many highlights of that remarkable decade in Arsenal's history came in November 1934, when no fewer than 7 gunners were picked to play for England in what turned out to be a notorious international at Highbury against newly crowned world champions, Italy.
Prince Arthur of Connaught, with the bearded Signor Grandi, shakes hands first with England, wearing white shirts, then with the Italian team. An Italian insists on showing the flag. The Swedish referee tosses up. Alamanti of Italy loses. Play continues at fever heat. More sensations follow. Brooke of Manchester City opens the score with a brilliant header. 1 up in 9 minutes. pace is very fast. England continuing their forcing tactics, and now Brook takes another penalty kick and scores again. 2 up in 12 minutes. England's vigorous assault is not yet held, and their centre-forward Drake scores with a beautiful hook. 3 up in less than a quarter of an hour. A nasty shot for the team which is referred to as World Soccer Champions.
England went on to win 3-2, but Arsenal countered the cost. Eddie Hapgood sustained a broken nose, and among the other casualties Tom Whittaker had to treat were Drake, Bastin, Moss and Copping. And it was Ted Drake who provided the highlight of the 35-36 season. He'd always led the line in swashbuckling style, often paying a price for his bravery. But on December the 14th, 1935, he set up a First Division record which still stands, scoring all 7 as Arsenal beat Aston Villa 7-1. An even bigger star was Alex James. One of the great players in British football, he was a member of the famous Scottish Wembley Wizards. And it was James who featured in a special cartoon drawn to celebrate Arsenal's 3rd consecutive championship triumph. The following season, Arsenal slipped to 6th in the league, but success was maintained when they reached an FA Cup final against Sheffield United, in which all film cameras were banned.
Cup final day in 1936 brought the usual host of enthusiasts into London by road, rail and air. They've all come up to see the Cup final, but there's been so much in the newspapers about the film war that half of them don't know if they're going to see a football match or a fight. When they see our fleet of aeroplanes and autogyros, they'll think it's the air pageant. Now at Wembley, as the time draws near for the start, the crowds stream along the familiar streets. They're all going into Wembley Stadium. That's where they're different from us. We're not. With dewy eyes, we watch the chosen few going in to see the great Cup final. For this year, as you've heard, the FA will not allow the newsreels inside. I don't know what it feels like to be on the FA, but on the newsreels we feel like love locked out. But it's no good trying to get inside. The officials are too... Stop that man, he's got a camera. Thanks for trying, Sydney. Now the game is about to commence. From our fleet of planes and autogyros you can almost hear the band. Not quite. Arsenal have won the toss and decided to kick against the wind. The direction of the wind depends on which way our planes are going. Both goals were in peril in the early stages of the game. Arsenal attacking through Bastin, James and Hume. You can easily pick out James, he's the tall one in shorts. Arsenal did most of the attacking in the second half and kept on pressing the Sheffield defence without getting that all-important goal. But in the end, Bastin gave the ball to Drake and Drake scored. Arsenal 1, Sheffield 0. If you didn't see it, it's because you're not air-minded.
Sheffield thrown in full time. So the final whistle goes, and Arsenal have won the cup this year by 1-0.
Everyone knows that the newsreels won the cup final, though Arsenal got all the credit. Captain Alex James, with goal scorer Drake, refused to hand over the cup to our heroic cameramen. And quite a number of soccer fans turned out to see the conquering heroes arrive at the Islington Town Hall for their civic reception.
To that cup triumph, Arsenal's 2nd, was added yet another championship in 38. 5 league titles and 2 FA Cup victories in a decade assured Arsenal of immortality. At the outbreak of the Second World War, most Arsenal footballers joined the forces. Sadly, 9 of the 42 players on the staff didn't survive, and Highbury itself didn't escape hostilities. The ground was bombed several times, with the North Bank coming off worst. In the first season after the war, Arsenal could only finish 13th, but the following season another chapter in the success story was added. Sunderland were the visitors as Arsenal began their league programme with a 3-1 win. In the lineup now, Wally Barnes, Joe Mercer, Jimmy Logie, who scored that day, and Reg Lewis. Tom Whittaker had taken over from George Allison as manager, and in that 47-48 season the Gunners lost just 6 games. Amongst the great victories, a 6-0 defeat of Charlton in which Lewis scored 4, a 5-2 win over Wolves in March, and a 7-0 thrashing of Middlesbrough, Ronnie Rook getting a hat-trick in that one. Rook, in fact, was to go one better in the biggest win of the season, which was reserved for the final home fixture. Grimsby Town were the opponents, and Rook got 4 of the 8 goals that Arsenal scored that afternoon before collecting their 6th league championship. The makeup of the side was a mixture of old and new. George Swindon in goal, the Compton brothers and Alex Forbes. But it was Rook's 33 goals which proved decisive. Perhaps the greatest character of the time, though, was Joe Mercer. At 32, he'd been persuaded to forgo his grocery business in Wallasey and come out of semi-retirement following a dispute with Everton. Originally attacking wing-half, Whittaker converted the genial and bandy-legged Mercer to a defensive half-back. His outstanding leadership qualities were but a bonus, and 2 years after the '48 championship triumph, Mercer and Arsenal were chasing more cup glory.
Arsenal supporters were in great form at White Hart Lane. They certainly meant victory. But then so did Chelsea fans, who intended to see to it that their team went to Wembley. The pensioners' dark shirts kicked off, and the gunners' dark shirts with light sleeves were very soon on the attack. Incidentally, this was the first All-London FA Cup semi-final ever played. It was undoubtedly Chelsea's first half, and they opened the score with a goal by Bentley. The match was only about half an hour old when Bentley did it again. Black Mark Bentley, said Arsenal fans, but not Chelsea. Just before half-time, Arsenal's right-winger Cox took a corner and scored direct. Half-time and Chelsea still 1 up, but Arsenal are now really putting on the pressure. It's easy to understand the excitement when from a corner by his brother, Leslie Compton heads through to equalize. Seems a popular event in some quarters. 2-2, and then near the end of the match, Cox drives in a centre, and Dennis Compton tries a header, but just misses. The sequel, a replay.
Arsenal won the replay 1-0, and for their England international fullback Laurie Scott, that 1950 Cup final against Liverpool was very special.
Well, the Cup winning side was my last honour, as it were. Well, we'd already won the championship. I've been capped for England. And, so obviously this Cup final was a big thing to me. And I'd just been injured earlier in the year with playing against Wales for England. And so it was something to look forward to, and just to get there was a great thrill. But I think we went into the game as underdogs, but we played very well. Unfortunately, we come out as winners, so that was a great thing for me. And that's the most important thing of the early 50s for me.
Mercer spun the coin, only to see it stick upright in the mud. Next time, Taylor guessed right and said Arsenal to face a slight wind, but not enough to disconcert Mercer and his merry men.
And in particular, Reg Lewis, whose 2 goals brought the Cup to Highbury for a 3rd time.
But as far as the goals are concerned, the first one was reasonably easy, in as much as it came from the back. 2 passes up to Jimmy Levy, pushed it through the middle to me, the goalkeeper came out, and I was lucky enough to put it past him. That was the first one, and the second one, the late Freddie Cox put the ball inside to me, and I hit it on the turn, and one of those things that went in.
When you look back then, Reg, over your career, they are happy memories of that.
Oh, yeah, marvellous. Yeah, the whole thing about the Arsenal and the, going away for a week's golf and all those sort of things prior to cup matches, and that wonderful club.
That Arsenal team had plenty of ambition left, and 2 years on they were back at Wembley to face Newcastle in a match which Mercer considered to be his proudest as captain.
For the Prime Minister, who came onto the field to meet the teams, this occasion was a novel experience. And that must be a rare pleasure for such an experienced man as Winston Churchill. The 2 Joes met for the toss-up, Mercer and Harvey. Mercer won it for Arsenal. Jackie Melbourne kicked off for Newcastle, and 100,000 voices got going as well as the players. It was while Newcastle were putting on the pressure that any luck Arsenal had left over was lost. Wally Barnes was injured. This brought Tom Whittaker, Arsenal's manager, into the picture. First aid for Wally's knee, but in vain. After half an hour of the match, he was out of it. Newcastle continued to drive ahead against the Gunners' team of 10 men, and soon George Swindon was being put through it. Mitchell, Newcastle's left winger, came dribbling in, beating one man after another and looked a certain scorer. But no, he lost his chance. Still, soon afterwards, he sent it to George Robledo, who headed the goal of the match.
So Arsenal's Brave Cup challenge ended in defeat. The old trophy went to Newcastle United, and it's easily forgotten that Arsenal came within 3 games of the first double of modern times that season. The only thing to do was to bounce straight back, and that's exactly what Mercer and his merry men did. The opening game of the 52-53 season took them to Villa Park.
That's Forbes doing some sleight of hand with his feet. Oh dear, can it be the Birmingham supporters dislike his artistry? But when Aston Villa scores, a very different noise. In the event, Arsenal won, whatever that means at this stage of the season.
2-1 Arsenal won, an impressive victories, 5-3 against Wolves, 6-2 against Derby, 5-3 against Liverpool, and sweetest of all, 4-0 against Spurs, set Arsenal up for another league title. But it was mighty close. To be pressed into the Championship, Arsenal had to win against Burnley in their last game of the season. They did it, 3-2 the score, with Jimmy Logie grabbing the all-important winner. But even then, the sums had to be done. The outcome was that Arsenal picked up the league trophy for a record 7th time, pipping Preston on goal average by less than 1/10 of a goal. For much of that 1952-53 season, Arsenal were again on course for the double. The 5th round of the Cup saw them at Burnley.
There was snow everywhere at Turf Moor, where Burnley were visited by Arsenal, with a crowd of over 52,000 to watch. Arsenal kicked off, Burnley in the dark shirts, and the Gunners went off with an early rush. The ball was heavy, the ground slippery, football in fact was difficult. Burnley held off Arsenal, then launched a counter-offensive. This, however, was in vain, and neither side could break through in the first half. Burnley kick off in the second, and very soon the Gunners are pressing hard. It was right half Forbes who was largely responsible for their first goal, which was put through by Holton. This brought Wembley a little closer for Arsenal, who promptly succeeded in scoring a second by Lishman this time, and so on to the next round.
$69,000 packed into Highbury for the Arsenal-Blackpool 6th-round cup tie clash, and they certainly were rewarded with a thrilling match. Blackpool kicked off, Arsenal wearing striped shirts for the occasion. The visitors were soon going strong, trying hard to penetrate the Gunners' famous defence. Inside left, Alan Brown, number 10, the Scottish international, was always prominent in the attack. The first half, however, ended without a goal being scored, and after Arsenal had kicked off in the second, it continued to look like a draw. Then, 11 minutes from time, Brown to Taylor, and it's a goal. The Gunners came storming back and soon got the equaliser through Logie. A draw? No. For now, the goal of the match. Brown comes dashing through to score the winner. Blackpool win, the Gunners are out, but so, alas, is Brown, who broke a leg in the moment of triumph. Bad luck indeed.
After Arsenal's Championship triumph of 53, there followed a period in the wilderness, although not without some excitement, particularly in 56, when Arsenal looked set to go all the way to Wembley in the FA Cup.
Now to Tapscott, number 8. Arsenal still well on top. Tapscott goes through to Groves, he must score!
And Arsenal was soon to confirm their superiority in this fifth-round tie at the Valley, the second goal driven home in spectacular style by Jimmy Bloomfield. So a 2-0 win and a home tie in the quarter-final against Birmingham, but it wasn't to be Arsenal's year. They went down 3-1. Despite some fine talent, major honours continued to elude Arsenal. Here in 1960, 2 of 5 goals which crushed Newcastle in a First Division game.
Church. That one looks over the line. Up goes the linesman's flag. Throw to Arsenal. And as the sun comes out, Groves takes that throw for Arsenal to Bloomfield. Bloomfield, this delightful ball player. Lovely body swerve. And Hurd. And a goal. Corner to Arsenal, being taken by their young centre forward, Strong, playing in his first league game. Comes out of Vic Groves. Groves to Strong. He's got a shooting chance. He scored! It's there! He's got it!
Among the Highbury favourites at this time were Tommy Docherty, John Barnwell, David Hurd, and especially Jack Kelsey, the brilliant Welsh international goalkeeper. On their day, the Arsenal side were a match for anyone, Manchester United included.
Wills with the throw again for Arsenal, getting it back from Docherty. Noticeable that Charles at centre forward for Arsenal, moving around a lot to try and get Fox away from the middle. Now Groves backing up. Groves changing his mind, it seemed then. Getting it to Charles. Across to Barnwell, a goal! It's Violet. Violet to young Giles, beaten brilliantly by Docherty, up to Barnwell. And Arsenal certainly playing some lovely football. Now it's up to Hurd. And Hurd tries one. He's a goal! Manchester's throw into Charlton, momentarily unmarked. Can he hit it faster than a great save by Kelsey?
I think in that time we had a team that got old all of a sudden, you know, at the end of Tom Whittaker's period with the club. And then we had a couple of managers quickly, and new players were bought that just didn't fit in. And it was a period where we were just sort of holding out in the First Division rather than winning anything. In fact, a couple of seasons, I think we were lucky not to get relegated. We were that sort of close, yeah, but we survived.
Season started all right, and once again Saturday's back to normal for thousands of fans up and down the country. Leyton Orient making their debut in the First Division with Arsenal the visitors. The home team got plenty of encouragement, but it was just as big an occasion for the Gunners. It was Arsenal's first appearance under the leadership of their new manager, former international Billy Wright. He saw his team do most of the early attacking. Although it didn't exactly result in goals galore, there were plenty of pointers to an interesting season. Best of luck, Billy.
Making his debut in that opening game of the 1962-63 season was Joe Baker. He immediately showed just why Billy Wright had paid Torino £70,000 for his signature. But while goals were plentiful, the defence was vulnerable. In 1964, Arsenal scored their first goal on Match of the Day.
Baker. Deep ball to Strong. Out of Anderson. Strong again. Easton, it's good return, a fine move and a lovely goal by Strong. A lovely goal.
Arsenal lost the game 3-2, and as the inconsistency continued, so Billy Wright experimented with new formations. The team which took the field against Sheffield United in November '65 included Don Howe and Terry Neal, both later to manage the club. 4 of the double squad, Story, McClintock, Samuels and Armstrong. And a real crowd pleaser, little George Eastham.
Armstrong, Eastham close to him. Armstrong and the goal, an equaliser by Baker. Comes Story, the left back. Scutton moving in, and he scored! Baker to Samuels, and Arsenal is sprightly as ever in his Armstrong. Is going to be number 5, yes!
The final score was 6-2, but the Gunners finished the season in 14th position, not good enough by Arsenal standards. As England won the World Cup, Billy Wright lost his job. The choice of the club's physiotherapist, Bertie Mee, as Wright's successor was not so surprising, bearing in mind the success Tom Whittaker had enjoyed in the 40s and 50s. Mee was a disciplinarian, a brilliant organiser, and with first Dave Sexton and then Don Howe as coach, began to create a side to fear. Within 2 years, Arsenal reached a Wembley final. The trophy at stake was the League Cup, the opponents Leeds United. In a Dour contest, one goal was always going to be enough to win the game, and it was Leeds who got it. Furnell was impeded at a corner, and Cooper lashed in a superb volley. Defeated but not downhearted, Mee and Howe brought Arsenal straight back in '69, and surely this time, with 3rd Division Swindon Town the opponents, a major trophy was on its way back to Highbury. Amazingly, on a mud heap of a Wembley pitch, Arsenal failed to convert their chances, were thwarted by Peter Downsborough's brilliant goalkeeping or the goalpost. At the other end, the anxiety was beginning to show, and soon a catastrophic mix-up between goalkeeper and centre-half presented Smart with a gift. Swindon were ahead, and although Bobby Gould equalised, it was the Wiltshire side who ran out worthy 3-1 winners after extra time. There were those who suggested that Arsenal team would never recover from the Swindon disaster, but how wrong they were. In 1970, a first European trophy, the Fairs Cup, was Highbury bound. Sporting Lisbon, a victim en route to the final.
Armstrong to Radford. McNabb. Radford. Simpson. Armstrong. Simpson again. Robertson, Arsenal moving with real authority and looking very composed. What a good header, what a good goal! Graham! Armstrong. Radford. McNabb! Yes! After 17 barren years and an unforgettable final victory over Anderlecht, skipper Frank McClintock proudly held the Fairs Cup aloft. It was seen as a start, with better still to come. After 2 encouraging draws away from home, the first game at Highbury of the 70-71 season brought Manchester United as visitors. The strength of Mee's 17-man squad was immediately tested, with Peter Simpson and Charlie George early season casualties. Young Ray Kennedy, after playing a key role in the Fairs Cup final, became John Radford's striking partner, and oh, how he benefited.
Bobby Stiles once more, acting as assistant to the referee. On by Kenny.
Σιωπή των ισοπεδών μέσα σε 10 λεπτά.